Mastermind, I would like to introduce Michael Bourne. So Mike, he's coming all the way from Canada to be with us. So let's share a screen with Mike. His debut novel, Blightfield Canyon, is due out from Regal House in July of this year. He's published more than a dozen stories in literary magazines, including Tin House, the Southampton Review, December, and The Common. He's a contributing editor to Poets and Writers magazine. He's a staff writer at the literary website, The Millions. He also writes for the Globe and the Mail, the National Post, Salon, the New York Times Magazine, the Georgia Straight, and the Economist. Those are just a few of them. And best of all, Mike and I were we're both alumni of the dramatic writing program at Tisch School of the Arts, New York University. So we go way, way, way back. He was a fantastic writer back then, and now he's seasoned. That's what happens when you get up to a certain age, you get seasoned. He grew up in Northern California. He lives in Vancouver, British Columbia. So Mike, welcome. We're so proud of you. Congrats on your upcoming book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's coming out. It's June 30th. It's actually the date.
June 30th.
Yeah.
That's, I said July, but that's close.
They changed the date. What do you got?
I hate when publishers do that.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of questions for you that I think will help people on this mastermind not only learn about your book and the process that you went through writing your book, but also a few things that you've learned along the way about publishing, because as a journalist, you've covered publishing and know quite a bit. So you're coming at publishing from a different angle than I am. So you have a lot of interesting insights. So I've already pre-ordered your book. I can't wait to get it and to read it, hold it in my hands. But since I haven't read it, I think the best person to, there it is, you've got a copy. How'd you get one so early? Oh, because you're the author.
They get certain privileges, right?
So tell us a little bit about it.
There it is. There it is. Okay, so Blightfield Canyon. I was trying to think about how I would introduce it. I'm going to have to get good at this, right? It's a little pitch. So it's a novel about love and other addictions, set in Northern California. And the narrator, a guy named Trent Wolfer, who's a serial screw up. He's a poor kid raised in a rich town, and he's blown it in like every single possible way you can. And he narrowly avoids prison and ends up being sent home, bailed out basically, and has to live with his mother in his hometown. And the book begins with him blowing it again. He's back at his old ways, and about to sort of go back down again. And in walks a woman that he dated or was in love with anyway in high school, who's now a single mother of two. And the book is basically just this guy trying not to blow up his life so he doesn't blow up hers. And you know, you got to read to the end to find out what happens.
Yeah, so it sounds like from what I can see of it, it's being categorized as literary fiction, but it also sounds like there are a lot of funny moments in it.
Yeah, no, that is very much a meant to be funny, and sort of biting. And you know, it's set in my hometown in Mill Valley, which is eminently, you know, it's Marin County, it's, you know, La La Land. It's an easy target.
So you're writing about what you know.
Yeah, write about what you know, and you know, it's a big broad target, and I take aim and have fun.
So what inspired you to write the book?
Well, yeah, interesting question. I think I always wanted to write a story, write a book set in that town. It's so rich, such a rich, and then I'm also really into it. I always love stories where the two characters really shouldn't be together. Like you're rooting for them to get together, but you know in your heart this is not a good thing. I love those kinds of stories. So that's what it was, right? It was this love story between these two people who you're the whole time going, oh man, I hope they get together, but at the same time, I really hope they don't, for everybody else's sake and for theirs. That was the idea, to try to tell that love story in that particular place.
Fantastic. How long did it take you to write it?
Forever. Um, I mean, there's really two answers to that question. One of which is really embarrassing. So I actually wrote the very first scene, which is not all that changed from the one that's there, in 2001. So that long ago. But to say that it took 18 years, because I finished it in 2019, is really kind of misleading. Because what happened was I wrote that, didn't know what to do with it, put it aside. Years pass. I go, oh yeah, and so out of whatever it was, like 18 years, I'd say like 3 or 4 of those years were time I was actually working on it. It just it was one of those books. I'm actually going to write an essay about this. It's one of those books that I I had the idea 20 years ago, 18 years ago, and didn't have the writing chops to write it until just a few years ago. That's what happened. I mean, I just kept running up against my own inadequacy as a writer, and then having to sort of step back, learn a bit more, and learn how to do it.
So looking back on that, do you think that that was a real inadequacy or just your own emotions at play?
Yeah, both.
Both.
I mean, yeah, I'm as neurotic as the next guy, but no,
Not as
I
neurotic as I
really,
am. Okay.
yeah, no, I remember that, Greg, Gary, I do remember that. Uh, no, I think it partially neurosis, but no, I honestly think I didn't know how to tell a story. I've always, my background is news, right? I'm a newspaper reporter, so I could always write prose that was readable. That was never a problem. The problem was learning how to tell a story that would keep people interested for 300 pages. I wrote a lot of books, right? Like everybody else, that will never see the light of day. They're not any good. And so I had to like figure it out. And for whatever reason, consider myself a relatively intelligent guy, and fairly practical, but it just took me a super long time to figure out how to do it in a way that would produce a book that people would want to read.
And then
Um,
life got in the way, right? Like
and then
family.
life gets in the way. Yeah, I'm the primary caregiver for my son. I work for a living. Yeah, um, life does get in the way. But yeah, no, it was mostly me figuring out how to tell a story that would really hold people for 300 pages, which is hard.
Yeah. How long did it take you to find a publisher?
That was another, again, there's two stories there. One was I tried to find an agent for it and came just painfully close a bunch of times with a bunch of different agents. I used to joke it was the most beloved novel, unpublished novel in America. Um, uh, but it just, it wasn't commercial enough, is what it came down to. The demographics are wrong. It's a love story told by a guy who maybe he's not the nicest guy on the planet, and would women read it? It just was this whole business conversation that I was having. And so then I decided to just do it on my own, and that was really quick. I went with I started sending it out to independent publishers, and that happened in 3 months. So that was clearly where it was supposed to go. I just was barking up the wrong tree for a while.
Well, it sounds to me like I'm definitely the audience for it because I read literary fiction just like that.
Right.
So thank you. I hope I'm not the only one. I assume I'm not the only one, but there is a readership for it.
Yeah.
What are some of your book launch plans? Like, what do you think?
Oh yeah.
Did
Well,
you
I'm
hire a publicist?
yeah, I did actually hire a publicist. And so I'm working with a publicist. In fact, I'm having one of our sort of weekly check-in meetings tomorrow. I'm doing a small book tour. If you're on the West Coast in Seattle, the Bay Area, or Los Angeles, go to my website and you'll see the dates, and I hope I'd see you there. That'd be fabulous.
Did
So I'm
you
doing
sign
that.
them yourself, or
Uh,
did your publicist help you with those? The signing.
Both. I mean, for those of you who are thinking about setting up book tours, so I'm an unknown, right? I'm a nobody. So it's hard for me to book a bookstore, right? They don't know me, and they don't know that my book is going to attract people, even if I'm able to argue, hey, I know people there, blah, blah, blah. So what I've done in a number of cases is partner with a more senior writer who's a friend, who is going to introduce me and vouch for me and do an in conversation with. I'm doing that in several places. That seems to calm people's nerves and gets me invited. So I did that, and then yeah, my publicist does have some connections and was able to sort of pull some strings for me in other places. And then I also write for like my intro, so I'm going to be doing a lot of writing, essays and just making noise wherever I possibly can, and trying to get we're really focusing on the Bay Area and on California, because it's very focused there, and I'm trying to get some press and get on radio and that kind of stuff, and get reviews. I got a great review, and this
Publishers Weekly, right?
yeah, Publishers Weekly gave me a really, really nice review, and that's huge.
Congratulations.
That really has opened doors. Now bookstores who wouldn't have heard of me now are like, okay, well, all right, we better stock this book. So yeah, that was a big deal. That was a big get.
So you've also covered the book industry in magazines, and you've served as an editor for Poets and Writers. You've contributed articles. What is the best piece of advice for a novelist who is looking to complete that first work? What is the, if you have one thing to share, either on the business side or on the creative side, what might it be?
Yeah.
And don't say don't do it.
Don't chase trends. I mean, and I hear this from a lot of agents and publishers too. Don't chase trends. There's a practical reason for it, which is the books take so long to write that by the time you're done writing it, the trend is over. So like, a few years ago, if you're gonna write about vampires, the vampire thing is done by the time you finish the book, and are ready to sell the book. And then there's a more personal reason to write it, which is that I think that those books are ultimately false. And write the book that you want to write, that makes you proud, and makes you want to get up in the morning and work on it. I think people are over focused on the business side of it, and I know some of the details of how the business works. It's not that lucrative. It's not. There's a lot easier ways to make a living.
It's not
What's
lucrative
that?
at all.
No, it's not lucrative. There's way easier ways of making a living. It makes so much more sense to have a Joe job that you sort of like, and write what you care about, than try to make it as a freelancer. It's just an insanely, I do it. I mean, I'm a freelancer. I can tell you, it doesn't pay. I'm lucky I have a teaching gig. So write what you love.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say. Don't chase trends. Write what you love.
So you've obviously also reviewed a lot of books over the years, and probably seen your share of debut fiction. What would you say is the biggest mistake that debut novelists make?
Yeah,
thing that they
if I'm being honest, it's that they publish too soon.
really
Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot to be said for rejection. Because yeah, a lot of books that I read, the person has talent, but they don't know what they're doing, and
the language or the plot or just all of it,
whatever it is, right? I mean, it's a different thing each time, but they didn't go through that process that I was describing of for whatever reason they were able to get past gatekeepers early on. And again, I'm just saying, there's something to be said for failure. It's so sort of demonized in our culture, like but there's real value in it, right? They rushing yourself out there before you're ready, before you know what you're doing, is not necessarily the best thing. Learn your craft, figure out how to tell the story, figure out to tell the story that's your story, and make it like a book that just needs to be in the world, and then it will find its place. The stuff, I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience too, right? I mean, like the stuff that I wrote that's on my hard drive, it wouldn't have gotten a good review in Publishers Weekly. People like this book because it's like I learned how to do what I was. All the ideas and everything were there. I just didn't know how to make them work on a page.
It's like anything
in a book.
It's a craft that you have to
Yeah.
learn and hone and polish, and it has to I don't even want to ask how many revisions you went through.
Yeah, like hundreds. Yeah.
Hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like endless, and it's not even that, although that certainly was a lot of it. It's much more just like I'm noticing now that when I write a scene that doesn't work, that used to be like just like, what am I gonna do? Right? Like this is, and now it's much more, well, I'll just take this and I'll change that and I'll do this thing over here. And I'm much more able to kind of make it do what I want it to do because I understand how the thing works. It's a machinery. It's
Yes.
like understanding how a car works,
Right.
right? If your car breaks down, you look at it like, if you're not a mechanic, you're like, I don't understand how this, I don't know what to do. If you understand how a car works, you just fix it, right? And I think that's what all those years did. As I understand how stories work,
Yeah. And it's not
how
just
scenes work, and how characters work, and all that.
it's not just paying dues. It's really learning how to do it right and being ready for it.
Yeah, and having this sort of deep understanding of like what a story is, and how a character arc needs to work. And that's what I'm saying. Like, when I started writing this book, I really didn't know how to make the guy get to where I wanted him to get to. I just had no clue. I just sort of wrote, you know, and it's a craft. It's a thing that you learn how to do. Just like writing, those articles that I write for Poets and Writers is a craft. Like I know how a Poets and Writers article feature piece works. I know how many people I need to interview. I know what I need to. I know what quotes I need to get. And if I don't get them, I know I need to go back to the well and get some more. I know what I'm doing. Same thing with teaching a class. I know what I'm doing. I know how I got to get this thing across. This is something with writing books.
Right.
It just took me longer. I don't know why.
Well, it takes everybody a different amount of time, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's different. Well, listen, Michael, it is just so great seeing you again and talking to you. And I'm so excited for your book. And, everybody just check it out. You can pre-order it on Amazon. I don't know if you've added it to the chat yet with the link.
No,
but
I have not.
Untitled Canyon, pre-order it. I hope it's a bestseller and wins awards and all that great stuff. So
I hope so too.
I hope you'll hang around for as long as you can in case there are questions for you.
Yeah, sure. I'm totally open to questions. If people have questions, I'm totally open to that.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, just so great having a novelist starting out, because often you have interviews with authors where they're much further on in their careers, 10 books later. So that excitement and thrill of the debut novel is still there, as you could tell in his passion and firsthand knowledge of and memory of everything that he went through to get to this point. So it's pretty exciting. But now we're going to move to our mastermind panel with some important questions. So first, we're going to bring up Robbie Law, who has done 15 gazillion presentations. I tried to say it so I wouldn't get the number wrong, but so 15 zillion is somewhere in the neighborhood, I imagine. But you are the king of presenting via Zoom, via stage, wherever it might be. And I've just loved your insights in the past. I've adopted a few of them myself, so thank you for that. So I've got a question for you that I know people struggle with. So here it goes. You ready?
Yes.
Here it goes. I should do a drum roll, but if I have a last minute presentation in front of a group of people I don't know, how do I get to know the audience quickly?
Man, that is a great question. And I love your edification of me. I appreciate you talking about my bazillion presentations. And nobody here has ever heard of me, because I had kind of an interesting presentation style in that I was always talking to people that were brand new that didn't know who I was. So I dealt with this literally every single day of my career for 15 years and had, thousands and thousands of opportunities to learn what it's like to get to know people really fast. I'll tell you from experience that at the beginning of my understanding in this process, it took me a very long time to get an audience to warm up to me. And by the end of my career, I had shortened that gap significantly. So I'll tell you the biggest thing that I did, and this is going to be more philosophical than it will be like tactical, is I understood that I was ready for that moment. That was the most important thing, is I was ready. And so, you know, I'm an Eagle Scout, so I talk about being prepared often. And so that preparation for someone who may not feel prepared, they sometimes need to just look at why they're being asked to speak. Like, why are we inviting Michael on here? If he has expertise, we want to learn from him. He should realize that he's ready for this moment. So if we ask him last minute to be here, he should know I've been in the trenches learning what it's like to be an author for this amount of time. He's prepared, you know. The second is really to have the message prepared, meaning that if we're asked last minute to come speak to an audience, then the audience may not know who we are, but we do know the message that we carry with us. So I really loved what I even wrote it down, man. So many good things from Michael. I appreciate you very much. He said, write the book you want to write, you know, write what you love. But he said, make it a book that has to be in the world. Like, when we love our message that much, when we love what we've been through and what we've tried to do and what we've tried to accomplish so much, it's so much easier to just go, okay, I'm last minute, but I'm going to get up there and I'm going to speak from here. And I'm going to speak from a prepared heart, you know. So that's the philosophical advice. So now the tactical advice. There's something that we can use really quickly to kind of just find out and engage the whole audience. Because if we want them to warm up to us, that's about trusting that we're not there to try and take advantage of them or hurt them, or they want to feel like the time that we're there to share with them, they're going to be able to feel value out of it, you know? And so we want to be able to engage everyone. And so the easiest way to do that I found was to start with what's called an enrolling question. An enrolling question is I would find a question that I knew that everybody, if I had the answer to it, then I would know about my audience faster. And so I would program an enrolling question every single time. So like, I would work for TV shows. Like, I worked for one called Flip This House. And I would say, how many of you, by raising a hand, have seen our show Flip This House? Raise it up. And I said, oh yeah, awesome. How many of you have never seen our show then? Brand new, never heard of us before. Oh, okay, wow. So that's a lot of you. It's great that you're here to learn more. Well, now I've got to talk to every single person, but I also found out some information right then that allowed me to go, okay, at least I know half my audience knows who we are, half my audience doesn't. I've cut at least one detail in. So I would always try and start with that because it allowed me to learn something quickly. And then the second thing is it allowed me to just provide good feedback to the audience for participating, because I'm always trying to drive them to participate with me early. So if they raise their hand and go, yeah, I'm participating in what you're saying, I want to be able to reward that with positive feedback. So that enrolling question allowed me to do that every time. So I was always starting off by saying, thanks for participating. I know that down the road, you know, it's going to be harder for me to get participation. So I'm going to program you right now to participate as much as you can. So that would be my advice, is learn how to enroll the whole group. So if you've got no time, think of a quick enrolling question. What could I ask them? You know, how many of you have ever heard of my book before? Raise your hands. How many of you have never heard of it? Now I know if I've got people that have heard about me. How many of you have ever written a book or have a book? Raise your hands. How many of you have not written? So we want to ask a have and a have not question. And when we do that, we're going to be understanding our audience faster, and now we can communicate with them. So
such great advice. Enrollment questions. I love that. And so a lot of people think that they have to start off with a joke, but what if the joke doesn't work? What if you've misread the audience and said something that might offend them or they won't understand? I mean, then it's like, it's hard to recover from that. Not that I've ever.
I think people use jokes because they feel like that's an opportunity to get attention and break the ice. But really, the beginning is just about creating a connection with your audience. So it doesn't have to be a joke. Some of the best starting points that I've ever had, I had, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for one, but I helped a friend out. He was on stage last week, a really big event. He called me up. He's like, man, it works so good. All he did is he got up there and he said, man, it's so nice to be meeting together live again. Let's all just take a minute together and just take a deep breath and just feel the opportunity to meet together, because it's been a long time. And he sat there and he said, Robbie, it worked so good. They were so in. All I was doing was trying to get their parasympathetic nervous system working, because when they breathe through their nose, their brain turns on. And so I'm like, let's get them engaged. So I was not trying to do anything kooky. I was just saying, let's get them breathing, you know? So it's about grabbing their attention, and that got their attention, whatever it was, you know? So don't just make a joke to do a joke because that's the way you think it should start. The beginning is about making that connection. So grab their attention with whatever you can.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much, Robbie. Such a pleasure having you. It's such great content.
Yes, thank you. I always appreciate it. And I'm sorry if I have to bail early. I do have coaching tonight. So
okay,
if I,
well, for that reason,
but I'll be here for another 45 minutes
I do
still.
have a question for you. Oh, my friend Ellen Belitsky. Hey, Ellen. So she asks, Robbie, your Black Zoom background and subtle promotional logo is very effective. Yes, it is. You do all kinds of great stuff back there, and likely intentional. I know it is. Elaborate, please, on such subtle techniques for engagement.
You know, when it comes to presenting, I like to show up because I'm a speaker coach. So I get in and say, you know, every moment is an audition. So you think of the TikTok viral video that took 15 seconds. I have a friend named Hannah that was sitting on her motorcycle, and she's just, you know, on her motorcycle, and someone saw her and she was presented like a motorcycle rider. She's got a big bike, an Indian motorcycle. I think it has to be. Yeah. So it's an Indian motorcycle. And she has a TikTok video of someone shooting her. She says something funny. 2 days later, she gets a call from Indian saying, we need models, come be a model for us. She was auditioning right then and there when she was looking in the mirror saying, I'm going to get myself together tonight. I'm going to get on my big bike and I'm going to go riding around. And now she's got this cool promotional opportunity with Indian motorcycles. It's the same thing that happens with an event like this. There's someone on this event that could reach out to me and say, man, Robbie, I could really use some help. And if I show up and I'm the speaker coach, and let me just show you the real background, just so everyone can laugh at me, because it's not,
it's so good.
yeah, it's hilarious. It's just it's literally a green sheet that I bought at Target for $15. Okay. So it's a subtle touch because I care. Because every time I'm going to be prepared, because 5,000 presentations later, I can't get in here and look like the guy that doesn't understand how to present. Because if you sit there and talk about me, Gary, I sit there and go, oh my gosh, I'm not, like, they have never seen me speak. You guys, some of you have never even seen me speak except on these Zoom calls. And they're like, oh, he's good. I'm like, come on, come see me speak and then say that. But you know, I guess this counts as speaking because I look at communication every time I'm in a group think situation where it's me speaking to more than one. I'm in a completely different type of communication. So I've got to be able to understand how to operate. And one of my modes of operation is, Robbie, make sure that you are looking legit, because at any moment I need to be able to, you know, do things that get people's attention. I need to go, hey, what are we doing here? I need to be able to do the stuff that's people go, how do you present like that? Because I'm a presentation coach, you know. So every one of the touches matters.
And the contrast of the white shirt on the black background, it's so effective. It's like the reverse Steve Jobs or something.
I literally change into this shirt because I feel like I'm like, oh, you look nice in this, Rob, you know? And so I change into this. So I have two of them, and I only do videos and I don't, I mean, it's 90 degrees outside. There's no way I'd wear this thing.
It's
hot
too.
Yeah. So I throw it on when I do in videos. I keep it right next to my green screen. So because I know that there is, you know, that doesn't mean that we can't be ourselves. This is me. This is my authentic self. I've been a presenter for I say 5,000 years, but 20 years, you know, so I have to be prepared. So find the subtle touch that works for you, but know that if you're going to be asked to present and that's an opportunity, you know, present in a way where you come across as a professional. And then those of us that say, man, there's no money in this style of writing. Well, you know where there is money? Speaking. There's a lot of money in speaking. There's a lot of people that get paid because they have some expertise. I would pay to listen to Michael at an event and have him go, this is what I did when I was in the trenches, when things were terrible and I didn't understand the storyline. I want to know, because I was sitting here going, this is an author's publishing mastermind. Go look up Robbie Law and find all the books he has. Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Every time you talk to me, Gary, you're like, that's another book. I'm like, okay, I don't have a book yet, you know, but I know the grind exists. And so I'm here to go, well, okay, I'm preparing myself for that moment because I'm not a writer yet that's ready to publish. I am in the room with the people that are, because that is my future. You know, so I want to be listening to people like Michael. But my point is, like, learn how to present well, and you move out of just being an author, you move into being an author speaker, and now you've got another source of income.
Fantastic. Robbie, you're the best. It's so much fun.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll stop talking. I'll keep going.
No, you're great. You're great. Thanks so much.
You.
But we have another fantastic mastermind panelist. So we've got the fantastic Kerry Zane, TV producer, award-winning TV producer, and she is just so knowledgeable about the industry and so helpful with people. We just love having her on. And we've been talking these past few masterminds about the crossovers, the similarities and dissimilarities between the book business and the television business and film business. It's fascinating. They intersect some places and go off in different places elsewhere. We do know there is more money somewhere in TV and film than in books. We just haven't quite gotten it yet, but we will. So welcome, Kerry. So here's the question for you. I have a TV show concept for my book, and I'm in the same room with a top TV producer. Maybe it's you. How do I introduce myself? What do I say? What shouldn't I say? And I'm sure you've heard it all.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because I was listening to Robbie, and so many of the things that he said that he recommends on stage, I think are the same things that I would use, whether I was in a, you know, at a cocktail party and I ran into a producer, or I'm sitting in their office. Like I think the first thing that we all want to do is find parity, or at least that's my secret, is how do I find a common ground with someone? So, you know, he was talking about, you know, like people raising hands so that you get that level of comfort. For me, because I'm a woman and I love shoes, I will always talk about shoes. So first question I ask is like, where'd you get those shoes? Or those shoes look so comfortable? You know what I mean? So you like, when you assess the person that you think you're going to pitch your idea to, and see where you can find some commonality. And it just sort of like eases the path into whatever else you want to talk about. I know that wasn't exactly your question, but I think it's an important piece, right? Because now you've engaged them and they're interested and you've complimented them. So you've got their attention. I think if you have an idea in your head of a TV show, or, you know, you have a book and you see that you want to elevate it to a television or a film, or, you know, something like that, I would say you have to engage them with your passion and your belief in whatever your story is, and your commitment to telling it and elevating it. The other half of that is what you don't want to do. I think that what everyone is looking for in television is the unique entry point, something that they haven't heard or seen before. So, and it's funny because I think a lot of people do this, and it's counterintuitive, is don't say, well, my TV show is like a combination. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a little bit of, you know, like they kind of amalgam like 3 show ideas. And it's like, well, then they've already seen that, right? You know, and it just becomes
that's encouraged in book publishing, by the way. So that's a good thing to point out, that doesn't work in Hollywood.
Oh, and it doesn't work in the book business either?
Well, in book publishing, you're always trying to bring up competitive books that it's similar to, and it's a cross between this and that. They have to be apples to apples. You can't say, oh, my book is the next Chicken Soup, because editors will cringe and throw your proposal away.
Right.
But you take 2 things and mix them together, and if it's the right fit, the right analogy, that might catch someone's attention, as long as the work lives up to that. But that's great that you pointed out that it doesn't work in Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't know that it's the best thing, because at the end of the day, we're all marketers, we're all salespeople, we're all wanting to tell some kind of story, you know, and to Michael's point before, you know, you're telling your personal stories, right? The things that you know, and television is the same way. That's that passion piece, but it's also a unique story. And if a network executive is listening to your pitch, they're thinking about how they're going to market it. Right. So that unique spin, something that no one's heard before, that's the thing that's going to grab someone. Think about commercials that you watch on television, the promos for the TV shows. What are the things that attract you? What makes you want to go and turn on that show or listen to that story? And I think hands down, you'll find it's like, I've never heard that before. Oh gosh, I want to see that. I haven't seen that.
Wonderful. That's
Yeah.
such great advice. Thank you so much, Carrie. Awesome.
You're welcome. I need a better backdrop, Robbie. I need like a big,
like your shirt though.
I mean, like Gary has all the books and you've got this beautiful clean thing and I'm just, well, I do have a TV.
Oh man, you're like in SoCal near the beach, aren't you? We should have just a window to your background.
Yeah, next time I'll just have palm trees and yeah, beach and a little cocktail.
But this is the authentic you, so that's not bad either. So feel free to write your comments in the chat to any of the Mastermind panelists. Next, we have Mike Peluso donning his sister's role. Alicia couldn't make it today, so we've got a marketing related question. So give it your all, Mike. Do her justice.
All right, Alicia says hi to everybody. She's down in a much loved vacation right now, and she's like, "Should I shoot a video?" I said, "Don't worry, I'll say hi to everybody for you."
So here's your question. You better get it right. Get the answer right. Okay. So I just finished completing my nonfiction book, and I'm self-publishing it. I don't have any kind of author platform. Where do you suggest I start? So this is
that's beautiful, Barry.
Ground zero.
Yeah, and for those of you guys who did, I am the head of business development for our marketing agency, and we are an award-winning agency. So when it comes to platform, and I'm only saying that because I'm not just covering for Alicia. I would consider myself pretty uniquely qualified in being able to look and say, you know, when I look you up, that is your platform, And so if you think about if you think about what you stand for and the people that you're looking to support, right? Or the people that you're looking to reach, the people that you're looking to touch, there's that audience and they live somewhere. And then your platform is whether or not that audience can find you. And when they go to find you, what do they see, right? So that's the beginning thing. So now that we understand what a platform is, let's talk about where to start, some tools, tricks, tips. So the first thing that you're going to need is a website, or a social media profile. If you don't have a social media profile, make one. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, make one. So just like those general places where people are going to be able to find you, I think I love just Google My Business is a great tool. If you're not familiar with Google My Business, it's what allows for you to kind of, you ever see that pop-up bubble there on the right-hand side when you're searching something on Google and it's like, hey, this is a business. That's a Google My Business. It's free to register. You just go in there, you register, they send you an email, and then you go back and you just say, hey, I'm an author. I'm in the space here. Here's my book. And so putting it up as a Google My Business is going to show local author is great. And so that's a good way to start to begin to create a little bit of traction, because you're going to want that, because it's also going to help your website, because your website and your author platform are married together. And so I like to start off with a 5.
So one second. So how does that first-time nonfiction author know? Should it be an author website or a book website or both?
Okay, so we were talking before about the profitability of being an author. And when you're a nonfiction writer, oftentimes it's dovetailed right into your business, right? So if your book is a calling card, you're going to want to really position the book as a calling card and position everything to be in line with your business. So let's just say that you're a motivational speaker and what you do is you do leadership coaching. It's great to be able to align your leadership, it's great to be able to align your business with your message and your message with your audience. And so that's kind of the general scope of building an author platform. But here's the thing I want people to think about. There's two components of it. Like a lot of times we talk about going out and maybe you're doing podcasts or radio or television, and that's great stuff to do. And if you think about it, those people are going to listen to you and they're going to look you up, and what they find, they're going to judge, right? So if you're starting off as an author, I recommend like a 5-page website, one that has an about you section, talks about your book, a place for them to buy it. If you're a speaker, it should have a speaker section. And that's normally a really good place to start. And then from there, you can kind of hone your message. You've heard me speak before about shifting beliefs in the marketplace. So what's going to allow for you to be unique in the marketplace is that you have a unique message, and your unique message is going to stand out because it's, as Carrie was saying, it's something they haven't heard before. It's distinct to the noise that everybody else is talking about. Well, it's distinct to the noise that everybody else is talking about because it edges a new belief that people maybe haven't considered in that marketplace. All of a sudden they're like, wow, I just realized that I can do that I can do this. I just got hooked on mergers and acquisitions, and I was rolling through and I found this guy, Roland Frazier, and I was like, oh, wow, he's got some mergers and acquisitions. I'm going to check it out. He's got a book. I'm going to buy it, So why? Because I never heard people talking about mergers and acquisitions that way. Is he good? I'm not sure yet. I'm going to find out. The book's on its way. But the point is that I had an existing belief about what mergers and acquisitions were. He was in the right place at the right time and speaking in a way in which it had me shift my belief. And beliefs emerge in language. They're literally language. A belief is a thought that you've agreed with. And so if you look at your messaging as shifting beliefs in the marketplace and then say, where's my audience? What are their common beliefs? How do I show them that there's a new way to do things by addressing their existing belief and then asking them to consider this new belief, and then create clear communication for them to find you? Now you're going to develop a strong author platform. That along with authority building content, is going to really have you stand out when you're in the nonfiction space.
Excellent. So we've got a couple of things. First, Michael Bourne, you have some thoughts to add to the topic.
Yeah, sort of piggybacking on what Michael was just saying. I have a good friend who is a writer, and she published a book just recently called Poe for Your Problems, I think is the title. But then the point that she's made, we've had this conversation about platform a lot, and I write about publishing and I try to translate this idea for writers. And her point is that this platform that's your personal platform, the website and all that, I'm doing all that stuff. And that's really, really important. But actually, that's only part of it. The real thing is what you're writing about, your subject. That's a big platform. And that's where a lot of people are drawn to it. And I think what Michael was just saying about, what you say, what you're in the news business, we would call that your angle, right? What's your slant on it, right? But she was struggling to publish a book for years, and then suddenly figured out that Edgar Allan Poe has an enormous platform, right? And if she says something even halfway original about Edgar Allan Poe, she's going to be able to sell her book, and she did, and she made good money. She made good money on it. I think one of the things I'm discovering with my book is that it's literary fiction, and I wrote it to be for readers of literary fiction. That's a disaster. That's selling into a vast pit. But to sell it as a book about California and about a particular place and time, there's a real audience there. There's people know it, and I have something original to say about it. That's turned out to be really, really, I don't know whether it's lucrative, but it's sure drawn interest. So I think the thing that I would say is, I think it's really intimidating when people, particularly people who don't have a, aren't famous or whatever, hear the word platform. It's scary, right? Like, who am I? But it's who you are, but it's also your subject, what you're writing about. That's what's going to draw readers.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like, and to piggyback off what you're sharing there, Mike, like, you can have an incredible platform inside of a Facebook group. I think
Right.
like I look at things globally, but you can have it inside of a Facebook group, and that Facebook group, I often like, I think when I was starting off, I kind of like got authority kind of collapsed there with platform. And I was like, okay, where can I go where I could have some sort of authority? But if you're passionate about a topic and you're in a Facebook group and you're just sharing about that topic, you're going to see people start to follow, they're going to start liking you, they're going to start, and then you can share your book. So building platform authority, it should be like, for me, we've gamified it. It's all about how can I'll give you an example. I was in a networking event recently, and I do speaking engagements on mindset, and I was at a networking event, and anytime I'm at a networking event, I love to go right to the person that's hosting the event. Hey, I want to do a one-on-one with you. Let's talk a little bit about it, and got things going. They're from Affinity. They run the nonprofit division of Affinity. And she's like, we would love for you guys to come out. We want you to do a mission and vision video for us. And we also are thinking about doing some speaking. This is for the main networking group there. So it was like, wow, like, how is it that I was able to just go from, hello, I don't know anything about you, to, hey, we want you to come out and create this video, and we'd like you to be able to speak. And the answer to that is that when you Google me, there's great stuff. Our agency is an award-winning agency. We're top 1% in the world. We've launched part of Verizon's website. We've done work for the United Nations. Have you probably done some really cool stuff too? But can people find it? And are you positioning yourself as an expert in the industry that you're looking to impact? That is the gamification of it. And it's really incredible. I mean, like, take a look, like you saw earlier, you saw Robbie in here, and you talk about platform authority. Robbie's coming in here just as a speaker, right? And Robbie shared, he's like, I haven't written a book, like, he's like, but I know what I'm doing on stage. But here you can see that by virtue of us edifying him and saying, hey, Robbie's incredible at what he's doing, we've created this experience of authority because he's really good, but we've also translated it over into this book space. And so we've created this experience of platform authority that you can benefit from, because it's really there. So if you're thinking like, how do I gain platform authority? Who do you know how can you engage in a community in which you can add value to that community in a relationship environment? Maybe you're an expert in accounting, and you have somebody that's an expert in credit, and you guys are hosting a mastermind, and you're just going to come and drop a little bit of value there. And then how do you utilize that value and share it across the social channels in a way in which it has people be able to engage? So it's just fun, at the end of the day, it's great. And I'm sure, yes, Rick right now dropped into the group, Author 101 University, which is a Facebook group, and it's a great group. You got to go join it. And I'm sure he'll talk to you more. How did I get the great background?
Well, thank you. Thank you both, Michaels. You both have a lot of great stuff to share. So I really appreciate it. But Mike, stay on for just one more moment. You're going to switch your brain back into your own head and answer a question for yourself. So yeah. This is even more in your power alley. So how do I find quote unquote purpose for myself as an author when I just published my first book and no one seems to be buying it?
Yeah.
That's tough.
Oh, I remember releasing my first course, and it was like, I like worked hours and hours and hours and nobody got it. I remember turning that into a PDF. Yeah. How do you gain traction in that moment? So the first thing to recognize is that you are living into your idea of the future, right? You ever notice how, you're planning a vacation, you're all excited, you're getting things ready, things are, all right, the world is coming together. You're getting yourself ready. You know, you get on the plane, you fly out there, you're all excited. And then you're still, after a week later, you're hanging out on the beach and you're like, oh man, I got to go back to work on Monday. And all of a sudden there's this like, ugh, that comes over, but you're still on the beach. Physically, you're in Oasis, but your idea of the future has changed. And so now all of a sudden you're concerned. It's the same way when we think that things are going to be successful and that success hasn't happened yet. And now we enter into a state of uncertainty, right? So in order for us to really understand what we can do here, we've got to understand what's at play, which is just that the idea of your future is uncertain in this moment. And when we're uncertain, the first thing that we do is we go to grab the things that we can be certain about. And if you understand how the brain works, the way that it drives neurology, the way that your brain takes information from the moment. And right now, your brain is assessing what I'm saying, and I'm saying it in language. You're getting the visuals, but you're also in the room that you're in. As I say that you're also in the room that you're in, you'll become aware that you kind of brought your awareness out to the room that you're in. So as you'll notice that as I'm speaking right now, your focus is kind of shifting. Like as I'm saying things, you're kind of grabbing a little bit of what I'm saying, but you're also becoming aware of where your awareness is, right? Okay, so, and that's happening in language. So, well, we're accessing language. So what happens is when we're uncertain about our future, we don't know where to put our awareness. When we don't know where to put our awareness, we put our awareness on the things that we can be certain about. The things that we can be certain about have been driven into us through experiences that at sometimes we perceive as intense. We think to ourselves, I never want to forget this stuff because it's essential to my survival. It's essential to my performance. And so if you feel like you're not sure, like you release a book and now you're in your head, or you're you know, what's happening is your future is feeling uncertain and you're grabbing onto what you know to be certain about, and you feel that you could be certain that things aren't going to work more than you feel like you could be certain that they are going to work. And that's the only thing that you're dealing with. And so how do we solve this? The first thing to do is to recognize that what is real about this situation isn't that your book is a failure. That would be a projection. It's that you think that there's a concern and that your concern is putting you into a state of uncertainty. Once you can do that, you can then figure out, you can get your concern out on a piece of paper, and so that you could see what is it that you're really dealing with. Like if I knew what, would I no longer feel uncertain? If I knew how I could take my book and put it in front of people that really found it valuable, now all of a sudden I would be, wouldn't that be good? Like, in other words, if I came to that person and said, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, you know, I just released my book and nobody's buying it. And I said, hey, it just so happens that I know exactly what it is that you need to do with your book so that people can buy it. Are you interested? They would all of a sudden have a major shift in their feeling, to the degree that they believe me, to the degree that they could be certain about it, because their future would have changed. They would have found a solution. So if you're able to get your uncertainty down to a sentence, literally a sentence, like you can write it out. If I knew how to get my book in front of the audience that I need, if I knew where my audience is right now, if I knew who my audience is, if you're able to workshop that, get it down to something so easy that you could type it into Google. Where do people that want to read books on mindset hang out? How do I give them my book for free? Or how do I give them my first chapter for free? You know, like if you're able to take this big concern of your future and boil it down to what it really is, which is just a belief that you've agreed with, that puts you into a state of uncertainty in the present moment, you'll be able to get it out on a piece of paper. And if you can get it out on a piece of paper, you can then Google it. So
fascinating about what you say, Mike, is that having been on the publishing side for so many years, for 30 years, I saw all the ups and downs and everything in between within the publishing house. The big bestsellers, the huge successes, the backlist books that sell forever. But also every now and then you get a sales manager, sales director, sales rep will come in and say, oh, that book sank like a stone. And it just published the day before. You know, so the whole
Right. Like, what?
it's like, wait a minute, it's not for a day. Like, what are you talking about? One buyer you met with didn't like it? I mean, come on. But that happens all the time in publishing, where
And
the mindset of marketing or sales goes down depending on what the buyer says to them. And like
Yep.
they're the gatekeepers, the rulers, and the editors are always the cheerleaders saying how great the books are and they're all going to be bestsellers, they're going to be hits. So it's that push pull that always happens. But my experience was always that the ones who shot the books down weren't doing anyone a service, and certainly not helping the morale of the company, the employees, the editors, and, you know, by extension, the authors, because those things end up in the air, right? Those vibes end up in the air. So, you know, I think that it's just so important that everyone who is involved in a book project, it's maintaining that enthusiasm no matter what. And I loved what you said before about the last couple of days of vacation when you're on the beach and all you're doing is thinking about work on Monday. So you ruin your last couple of days, right? Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
Same.
and Gary, to your point, like I like to say, and I say it, people, you're already perfect, whole, and complete. Like right now, guys, right now in your seat, you have access to the holy grail of all of experience, and it's being alive. And this is as good as it's going to get right now. And everything else is just a belief, a thought, a distraction. You can, you can chase it, you can grab it, but it doesn't change that you already are alive. You're experiencing the present moment, and everything else is something that you do within that present moment. So to me, like a reminder of that you're not your book. You know, your art, like that book is just something that you are experiencing, and what's suffering is the idea of the future that you were holding on to be certain about, and that idea having changed. You know, that becomes the real kind of, that becomes.
By the way, I should also point out that there are books that started out not selling, like they didn't sell well into the bookstores, or they sold into the bookstores but didn't sell through right away to consumers. But then over time, they found their audience. 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, that still does happen. So, you know, one should never give up.
Oh yeah, and the other thing, here's another thing. Like this is so true. Like look, like when you're speaking to someone like that, you were talking about, and they come in, they say, "Oh, this book sank like a rock. It was published yesterday, sank like a rock." What that person is actually, they're actually communicating their fears, their frustrations, their challenges, their wants, needs, and desires, their opinions. They're just ideaing, and it has nothing to do with the reality of it. When we read a book, we all have a different experience of that book. And that experience of the book is based off of your past experiences in your life. When I say, I want you to think of a car, you know, everyone thinks of a different car. So how could you possibly have failed at writing a book till every person on earth has given you their opinion of your book? And I can't tell you how many times it's like, well, this is crap. We're gonna get rid of this, you know. And then the person comes by and they pick it up and they're like, wow, this changed my life. And then all of a sudden you get out there and you're like, wow, you know, like for example, my speaking engagements, when I go in and speak, creating that stuff was cathartic for me. It changed my life. It helped hone a methodology, and now I can go share it on stage. Well, guess what? It wasn't like I came out and was like, hey guys, check out my this thing that I crafted, and I had a line a mile long for people to buy it, you know? Well, guess what? Me going through that process alone, the conversations that I was able to have with my companions in working it out, it helped change their life. It crafted my life. It gave me tools to teach to my children. It helped become, and so now what happens is the value of writing a book exceeds and has an impact so much larger than the opinion of whatever somebody is feeling at that day based off of what they've read on their interpretation of your book. So what I would say is get it out of your head. You recognize that you're dealing with the head game, that you are not your book, that a book that isn't working does not mean that you're not working. A book that hasn't sold 1 million copies doesn't mean that you're not a good author, right? It's that you are separate. And then recognize that what you're suffering from is the belief of a particular future in which there's uncertainty. And that state of uncertainty is having you conclude something, get it out on a piece of paper where you can read it, share it, get other people's opinions on it, and recognize that you're just dealing with a belief and that it isn't real. And then get out there and do the right thing, or do it and make it happen. Go have a conversation with someone who knows how to get that book out in front of the right audience. Go Google, how do I build platform authority for my book? What is it that I need to be able to do?
So everybody's on this mastermind now. If you're anywhere near the situation that we've just been talking about, definitely get in touch with Mike, because he's, as you can see, he's so inspiring and informative on this. And I've had my ups and downs as an author, just like everybody else has. And just hearing you talk has been just so helpful in terms of mindset. So please just tap into Mike. He is the best resource on this you could possibly find. He's your best cheerleader aside from yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I'm just going to say, what did you forget? That you're perfect, whole, and complete? But if you ever forget that you're awesome, just call me up and I'll remind you.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow. Yeah, right.
So we've got another fantastic cheerleader, the great, the wonderful, the mighty Rick Frishman, the guru of book publicity, marketing, and just a great guy. My old friend. Where are you, Rick? You're somewhere. There you are.
Here we are. Can you hear me now? Okay.
We hear you great. We're so glad you can make it. We had our concerns. You're too busy jumping around a swimming pool or something.
Yeah, well, here I am in Florida. It's about 85 degrees out, but I made it. Caluso, if you're still there, you are on fire today, kiddo.
Yeah.
I have never seen you so rocking and rolling. It's a beautiful thing. And to touch just a point on what you had said about getting upset about your book. There was a guy that I worked with years ago that wrote a book that was a bomb. I mean, it didn't go anywhere in hardcover. And it's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it just sucked. I mean, man, we didn't know what to do with this guy. And then Simon & Schuster said, you know what? Let's put it out in trade paperback. This is too expensive. And Stephen Covey came in and did a huge amount of publicity, and then it took off. And I don't know, I mean, Gary, you probably know it. How many millions and millions of copies that sold?
Millions.
So don't get down. Maybe sometimes it's just not the right format, or it's just not your time yet, but it will be. So don't let this get you down. I mean, and we've all heard, Mark and Jack and all that, they were turned down by 144 publishers, et cetera, before someone finally took them and their life changed. So the key thing is just to keep going and have the attitude of, I'm going to get turned down 9 times before one person says yes. And you just got to say to yourself, I am that much closer to the one that's going to say yes. And Carrie, you probably have that all the time with, in the TV business. I mean, it's all about rejection, and they turn down all these great shows, and then, boom, you hit it.
Yep. That's what my daughter said the other day. We're like, if we could just get that one, And the entire business is like that. We all say, we just need that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's a crazy world, but don't let these bozos get you down, because their job, they always just, they love saying no and saying this sucks and this is bad. Get these people out of your life. Keep people, like Michael and Robbie. I've never met Robbie face to face, and I'm in love with the guy. I mean, it's crazy. Get positive people around.
Is that because he's wearing a white shirt?
Oh, the white shirt. And
I
also,
know.
I gotta tell
you,
he has pectoral muscles that I don't. And this is, this is something my wife, and the problem is my wife's name is Robbie, Robbi. And every time I try to send her a text, it's like Robbie Law comes up. It's like, no, not
You
that,
write love
Robbie.
letters to Robbie Law.
Yeah, I keep on sending, oh, sweetheart. I've sent him messages, that he doesn't even want to talk about.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're keeping that between you and I. We'll just
Yeah,
keep that
exactly.
email, man.
That's a separate mastermind. We're not
Yeah,
gonna go there.
exactly.
But Rick, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
We're
You
gonna
do.
put you on the spot also.
Okay.
All right, so
And I don't even know
Oh,
what
you're a
this
master
is
at
going to
this.
be. All right.
I know you're a master at this. So can you recite a good pitch for a book or author to a top TV producer?
Whoa, a good pitch.
Yeah, just make something up. Like what's
Okay, I shall. It's like, are you about to kill yourself because the market went down 1,275 points today? Don't do it. No problem. We have the answer for you as to how you're going to get that all back and how. Don't let this worry you because it's all cyclical. And I have the expert who has actually made $5 billion last week. And he's going to teach your audience the 3 things that you have to do to survive this craziness. Boom. Now, what was that? This was taking a news story from today. Okay. And that's the most important thing, as we keep talking about, is that react to something that went on today and then solve a problem. It's because the producers and even the editors, they don't care about you or your book per se. They do care that you're an expert. And for all of you listening, the thousands of people on this call, as of today, you are an expert, okay? An expert at something, and claim that you are an expert. And that's what we are looking for as a producer, as an editor, as a publisher. I'm looking for an expert who can solve my problem. And the problem, it could be, sex,
also
cooking, whatever it is. Now that obviously is a nonfiction hook. For someone who wrote a novel, we've talked about it. It's a slightly different, but that's what you have to do. React to what's in the news.
So you said in that brief moment that you pitched the book, you did so many good things. You did the topical thing, the news of the day. You cited the importance of it. The stakes were very high, solved the problem. And also in the middle, without even naming the book, you established the credibility of the author. $5 billion last week,
Right.
So it was all wrapped into that mini pitch that you made. Amazing that you can do
Right.
that.
Now, of course, all of it's a lie, but I mean, when you do talk,
No, I want that book, honestly.
yeah, no, the book is exactly. But then you have to be able to back it up with reality and the expertise. And the problem, I was a producer, someone says they're an expert, and then I do, the next thing that I'm going to do, and this is, what we were all talking about before, is as a producer, as an editor, as a literary agent, the next thing we're going to do is check you out. So again, the first thing we're going to do is do a Google search and see what comes up. And we're drumming this in your head every call, but you have to have a really great website, a personal one, business one, or it could be one melded in. You can have several URLs all going to one main website. But on that website, I'm going to see credibility. I want to see testimonials from people who say that you're incredible. I'd like to see some streaming video. If you're trying to get on TV, I want to see on TV. I want to see how good you are. And if you have books, let me know about those books. Let me see the reviews, have the links for them. But that's the first thing that we're going to do is just check you out and double check that you said you're an expert, but are you really that expert? And then we'll come back to you. And also the other part about that pitch was most important word is enthusiasm. Kerry, you have the same thing with Hollywood. Again, is they're looking for enthusiasm. If you're not fired up, and if you're not enthusiastic as you're pitching it, then the producer isn't gonna get interested in you. So and again, there's a fine line where you don't want to come off as a crazy person, and be bouncing around, but you do want to have energy and enthusiasm. And lastly, it's like when you're on a TV show, and they ask you a question, or even a radio show, you're going to probably do a 30-second answer, which sets the stage as to why you're an expert. But remember to take a beat and let the person who's interviewing you actually jump in and say something. Because if you just keep on going and going and going, then they're going to get pissed. So take a beat and let the interviewer, like I'm going to ask Gary, to jump in and ask another question.
Right. Well, that was great, Rick, but we do have to go on to another question.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
Fantastic as always. You're outstanding. But we actually have one chat question for you, so I'll ask you that one. How do you deal with someone that already has a major online presence with your name?
And Rick, I want to just chime in here. I would love for you to, I don't know that we've ever touched on, all right, so you've got an incredible online presence already. How do you run? What's success look like now?
You don't stop. I mean, first of all, you're building all the time. I mean, you're building your social media, and it's changing, where years ago, Instagram was, what the hell is Instagram? I think it's a little camera, but now you gotta have a big Instagram account, obviously Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. And you got to keep building that all the time. And that, in fact, you are the master of this. And that, here, I just saved it, but let me see if I can show you this. Hold on, because here I just got. Oh, you can't see that. That wrong one. All right, the 14th message from.
Now we all have a secret.
Yeah, that was your
from
Robbie.
About the publishing master from Michael Peluso in the past 2 hours. So I got like 30 emails earlier today. And then in the past 2 hours, it's like, where are you? The publishing mastermind's happening right now. I have something extra special to share. So that's building. I mean, it's just automatic. And Peluso is the master of having these systems that do this. The basics, of course, and I've said it before, but you got to own your name. You got to have URLs. And to answer your question, if someone has your name, then you have to go in and get, you're the one and only michaelpeluso.com, the original Michael Peluso. You're my michaelpeluso.com. And you need to be able to grab it so that no matter what, we can find you. And then when they go to your website, I call it an ethical bribe when we keep talking about that, where when you're on TV, radio, newspaper, you got to have a freebie to give out so that you can just keep on building your raving fans. And that's what it's all about. It's raving fans who love your book, who love your speeches, who love your TV show. And you're building all the time where down the road, and you'd mentioned it before about platform and how scary it is. It's like, hey, I have 14 people on my list. It's like, I'm a nobody, but everybody was there. And we've all gone through it, and you just got to keep on every day building it and offering great content, great information. So they want to come back to your site. They want to come back, to your blog and just get great information. Last point, because we're starting to run out of time, is if you are selling them all the time, you're going to lose them. They're going to get off your list. They're going to, I have one guy who's an old friend who's on Facebook, and I've known him for years and years, but every post that is on Facebook, he's selling me something. And it's like, I'm just getting pissed. I mean, I don't want to see all this every time you're there. So if you're just selling all the time in your emails to them, in your text to them, they're going to say goodbye. I don't need you. I'll find somebody else that isn't selling me. So it's always giving them content, giving them great information, and then they'll want to stay with you because they're looking for good information. And then you'll have permission from them to actually tell them a little bit about how you can help them. You're not selling, but how you can help them a little bit more. And it's the same thing when you're on TV. You can't say in my book, in my book, in my book, or else everyone gets pissed on you. But if you've given them great information, then you can slip it in, and they're going to want to get more and want to get your book because you were so helpful to them.
So further to some of the points that were made, Eileen's point and question, and then Jennifer Glass added to that on the same theme of, similar name. And I had that because there's apparently a very famous Gary Krebs, who is the world's most famous fly fisher person in the world. And when I started out with my own business 6.5 years ago, I was a nobody, and this fly fisher person guy named Gary Krebs was squashing me. But I just kept at it. I just kept pounding it. And I buried the fly fisher guy. He's hard to find now. So you just keep at it and keep putting up content and getting yourself out there, doing things that make yourself visible. Now, Tom Quinn, whose book Delivering Greatness is coming out not too far from now. There is another Tom Quinn out there, and we decided to distinguish him from the other one was to add your middle initial, the
It's
V.
a famous British author, you told me. A famous British author named Tom Quinn.
There is. And you don't want your books jumbled with that author. You don't want any confusion. Are you the same person or not? So sometimes a middle initial can take care of that, or a middle name can take care of that. Something to distinguish just to help a little bit is definitely of value, so that people know you're not the same person. And actually, I've seen it on Amazon where the system will mix the books from the two people. That's the worst. Wow. That's very hard to untangle once that happens. We've got one last question, and it's from Mike. You're going to ask me that question. If you don't have it, I'll ask myself. I talk to myself all the time anyway, so it's perfectly okay. You got it?
He's looking for it.
Yeah, hold on. All right, fine. You ask it to yourself. Talk to yourself tonight. All right, I was like,
all right, Gary.
Yeah.
I am stuck halfway through writing my book and can't seem to get it done. Any suggestions? What a great question, Gary. That is like, I've never heard that question before. Well, let me tell you. So to get your book done, it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of passion and a lot of craft, as Michael Bourne described. You really have to develop momentum for the book. So for fiction especially, I have found, because I write fiction myself, you have to do it every single day, because if you don't, you lose the thread from where you left off. So you've got to do at least a little bit. Find your best time of day to do it. If your best work comes out in the morning, do it in the morning. If your best work comes out at night, do it at night. If you're strapped for time, it's extra stress, extra work, all of that. But you squirrel time away from other people during the day just to get something done, because you don't want to go through one day without having completed at least, your goal of 2,000 words or whatever it is. Even if they aren't great words, at least you are furthering things along with your book. I've also found that keeping a word count tracker can be very helpful. I do it as an Excel spreadsheet where all you're doing is just writing out your chapter numbers and chapter titles, and then in the next column, putting the word count in for each chapter as it's completed. And by doing that, you can look it over and say, wow, I'm up to chapter 4. I already have 12,000 words done. I'm already like a fifth of the way done. So it feels good to do that, but you also realize what is your average chapter length. Like how long on average is each chapter in terms of word count, and will it make the word count total? If you multiply that average through the number of chapters you expect to have, what will your total word count be? What you can also do in your word count tracker is put a schedule on it and say, by this date, I hope to have a quarter done or half done or 3/4 done or have the whole thing done. Again, by the time you're at these pivot points, the material may not be exactly where you want it to be, but write it anyway. Meet those deadlines. You can always go back, rewrite, revise, do things, but just keep working, keep doing it. So the first book that I wrote in 1995, The Rock and Roll Reader's Guide, which did well at its time, but it's now long out of print. It's 300,000 words. I had to write it in 3 years while I had a new job. I got married. I broke my back on Baywatch television show, which is a whole other story. And so I thought, like, hey, it would be a snap, I'd get it done. But you have to understand that as soon as you start writing a book, and especially when you sign a contract, things are going to happen to disrupt your plan. So those 3 years went by really fast. But what I did, even when I hurt my back, I got a major flu a month before my deadline. I was getting married. All this crazy stuff was happening. Even when I couldn't focus enough to write, I still did things on the book. I reviewed old chapters. I did some formatting of future material. I did some research. I did stuff that I knew my brain could handle. So at least you feel like your book is constantly in motion. There's always something happening. So to me, that is the most important thing. It's keeping that momentum going and always writing. The worst thing to do that I found, especially with fiction, is to share it with other people while you're writing it, because they are going to burst your bubble so fast, you'll never be able to recover. And they don't know your work. They don't know where it's headed. They don't know where your vision is. They don't. So resist sharing it with other people. And even when it's done, be very careful about the people you share with, because they still might not get it. They still might not get it. So perfect example, very quickly, I'll give the example of Karen Freeland, who wrote, I produced her book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a penetrating memoir. And it was a funny manuscript. It was great. It was beautifully put together. When I mentioned that book to people who knew nothing about her, the book, they said, oh, who would buy that? It's offensive, this, that, or the other thing. Well, when the book came out, it did extremely well. And not one person criticized the title, the subtitle. They all thought it was funny, and nobody questioned the validity of the book. So make sure that when you start in your project, you further it every single day and try to retain that passion. So don't get caught up in the nuance and the details of the problems, but try to remember the thread of the passion for why you're writing it. We are almost out of time, and I wanted to do just a couple of quick shout outs before we ended for today. So Don and Melinda Boyer, hi there, I see your photo, welcome. We've got Anthony DeGroff, Tony the Dream Maker, welcome, thanks for coming. I see your name up there, I don't see you, but thank you for coming. I also want to once again thank Michael Bourne for being our guest today. He had to leave a little early because he's coach of his kids' sports team. But I hope everyone enjoyed today's mastermind and got some gold nuggets out of it, got a little bit of inspiration. And anybody have any last thoughts you want to share before we sign off? Mike, Rick?
I want to say Rick Frishman is amazing, because for someone to be able to whip that presentation out that fast, I know how much it takes to be able to put something together with words like that. And I look at words as artistry. So I'm so grateful to have an artist like him on with us that can communicate so well. It was amazing. You always have such great nuggets. So Gary, thank you for letting us be involved. This is such a powerful mastermind. It really is. Got so much tonight. Thank you.
Everybody who's on this mastermind, if it's your first time or you've been on multiple times, look into working with any of these masterminds. They're available to you for coaching, for, I can help produce your books. Robbie can help you with the presentations. Mike can help inspire you. Rick can help with anything publicity related. Alicia, we miss you, but you're our author platform and marketing guru. And Kerry, of course, everything and anything Hollywood related, we rely on you with your golden expertise. So thanks as always for joining us.